So, Berger just came out with a new bullet. 245 grain, 30 cal. And I got together, a friend of mine was asking what would be... Oh, hang on just a second. Stank. Sorry, guys. I'm wandering around back here. Forgot that I'd set the camera on up for checking light levels. And just kicked the button and started talking. I think that's going to get us closer to what I am looking for here. Still don't know if that's totally right, but I wanted it to just show something called a mock-up. So, let me start over here. 245 grain, 30 cal, Bergers just came out. Got a guy that shoots a big 30 already. And we got talking about what did I consider, he asked my opinion of what is the optimum, ultimate 30 cal power package. You know, if we're going to push this 245, should we go with 3338 Lapua improved? Should we go with 3378? I brought up my new Hellbringer cartridge, which I made in a 30, and I've been playing with a little bit on a 30, even though 30 is not my thing. But the salient question was asked. First of all, I said, understand this Hellbringer thing I'm doing is completely off the wall new territory. It's not matching up with anything. And he said, and it's just, it's a way for me. Really, it's driven by the fact that every time I go to get Lapua bolt-faced actions, it always sucks because they're always out, they're always a big weight, they're always hard to find, nobody's running them right now. So I've had this peeve about 338 Lapuas for a long time. But I could go to that in just a minute. First of all, I want to show you that I had a couple of 338 Lapua bolt faces in stock. But I'm going to call this series The Way I Do It. Because in building a custom rifle, there are a lot of things to consider. First of all, in this case, we're starting with the bullet. We're saying, what's the best way to push this bullet? And now when the question was asked, you know, I said, well, I'm playing with the Hellbringer to try to come up with a case. Remington's brass has gotten remarkably harder in the last few years. All of a sudden, I'm running pressures in the RUM cases, the various ones out there. Remington's hanging right with the top of the pack. I don't know what or why. Maybe it's totally in my imagination. But I went from always feeling Remington cases were too soft to be useful to all of a sudden this Hellbringer is just bringing it on. But it's an offshoot, it's a wildcat, it's a weird duck, it's a bastardization of a WSM ran in too deep, super fat butt. Let's not talk about that. So the point is, I've got a fellow that's a lot more normal than me, and he kind of asked the question, well, what are you accomplishing with the Hellbringer? And I said, well, I'm trying to get away from the Lapua bolt face because in my opinion, the 30 Norma or the 300 Norma mag with Lapua brass is the ultimate 30 caliber case. And if with the 245 grain, it might be even behoove to improve it. But it is the perfect. The 3378, the 338 case neck down, any of the big 416, they're just too freaking big. They'll burn the barrel out and gain very, very little in velocity. A friend of mine improved a 300 Norma mag. Very, very happy with it. This fellow in question that I'm building this for, whose name may come up as this moves forward, but right now I'm just starting this build, so I'm not going to start throwing names out, has got a close relative who had a blown out, he had a 300 Norma mag built by someone else on a blown out configuration proprietary to that company. So there's two. And plus I have my own thoughts on blowing out a case. I'm about 10 TPI, I'm about shortening the neck up to whatever is useful. I'm about having a parent case that we can start with so that we can form a false shoulder. These are all hyper important things. And I'm about a 40 or 35 degree shoulder. 35 to 37, but definitely not a 40. So in the end, we decided, you know, if we had an action, well, here's what turned out. The first thing, at first we pick a cartridge or a case, which is called a direction, a plan of attack, a plan of direction. And then my way is to mock something up, which is what I've done right here. Now this looks kind of weird, it's got tape and stuff on it, but understand, we found a stock that he liked the feel of. I have a bunch of barrels in, number 2 taper, number 3 taper, number 4 taper, number 5 taper. This happens to be a weird taper called a 3.1 or something. But it's about equivalent to between the number 4 and the number 5. It's in a 9-inch twist, which we feel is appropriate for this new thing. So I snagged up this barrel from the Bugs because Bug Holes had it. And I said, send it. Bam! This action is one that I had in stock, and this action is a total beauty. This is one that I can't say enough good about. And one of the biggest things about it, let's see here if I can get it apart. This stock is not inletted, so everything's kind of icky-picky to get going here. But I gotta show this off. This is such a beautiful thing. Kelbley's came up with this, and they're wonderful people. This has got the manual extractor. This is the extractor, manual ejector. This is a 338 bolt face claw extractor. This light's not great. I wasn't intending to do this, but this drove the choice of action to me because I love this manual ejector. I think this is the coolest thing since sliced bread. So this bolt hanger bracket, nice bolt lift. So I said, okay, once we've decided on a caliber, we know what we need for a twist, which is a 9. They happen to have a Bart line in the appropriate size and shape. So we picked a stock, we had picked an action, we picked some bottom metal here. He wanted a gun that he can hunt with. He wanted a gun that he can carry. All these scrotal hanging AI tactical walk around like you're tough or something, biggie hangy down things are completely retarded. So he wanted something he could hold. So these are the rules. Wanted an adjustable cheek piece, wanted a certain feel. Then, this might look silly, but I take all of the, well, doesn't matter. Whatever brand of paper towel I use comes in little, I don't know what you call them, half sheets. You take one of these half sheets and you whip it around, you make a pad, you wrap it around tightly, and you tape it with some good automotive tape. 1, 2, 3, and all of a sudden this is held together where you can pick it up, you can swing it around, you can feel it. So we've chosen components here and I've mocked it up. That's why I wanted to focus, that's why I brought the camera over here. I just wanted to show you, this is a way. I'm not saying it's good, bad, or indifferent. You still have to be careful with it. But it's a way when you're choosing components to mock a situation up and be able to pick it up and hold it, swing it around, and kind of get a feel for what we've got. So that's what we're started with there. Now I'm going to come over here and get to work where we are got something to look at. And again, now I'm going to have to start adjusting some lights because I knew this was coming. This lighting gets funky weird in here. But hang on just a second while I go through some of the detail work here and get set up to show you the continuation of what we're doing. Now, I'm going to do another show on the fart, so we've kind of got a couple things going here. So you're going to have to bear with me just a wee bit. I think, let me get my lights. Again, it's very impromptu. And I've got some of my notes out here. This just happens to be that on the fart I was working with, well, going through all the powders that I'm using. And this got, it's getting late. I'm wrapping up. I hear supper's on the road. So I just decided, you know what, I'm going to whip out a thing here. And I'm going to show you how, understand something. I do not have any reamer at this point. And I should pretend that this stuff isn't here. Look at this stuff instead. I'll throw around bright shiny things so that we can see here. So let's start with the fact that I don't have a reamer. I don't have a set of dies. We're starting from scratch. And that's why I figured I'm going to go ahead and do my old warts, feathers, and all thing. And I'm going to start this series called How I Do It. So let's reiterate for a minute. We've chosen a cartridge. Admittedly, in my world, it's kind of the cartridge I'm trying to duplicate with my 30 Hellbringer. And now that this 245 grain bullet has come out, I might even be interested. This puts a little more energy downrange. If this 345 grainer will shoot the 30 Hellbringer or Norma, remember, I'm not throwing the Norma under the bus. I just don't like the big bolt head that it's hard to get actions for. It's also harder to get down. Boy, how do I say this? It's harder to get enough, to get more than 2 down in the magazine. Essentially, I've got setups that I can do with the 300 Hellbringer case that'll take 3 down in 1. But 2 down in 1 is all a person really needs for a hunting rifle. If you need more, you're doing something wrong. So let's start with the fact that we've chosen the Norma case. Now, because we want to blow it out, because we want to make it something different than it is, and I'm big on, not big on, I require, on any hot rod that I make, I require that the initial fire form be perfection. And that means 30 or 40 pounds of jam on this thing, 25 pounds of jam. That case has got to go in there and jam and stop. And I do mean stop forevermore. Come on up here. So to do that, we have to start with a parent case. Well, the nice thing is, the 338 case and the 30 cal case are essentially identical, except for the neck. And not only that, on the 30 Norma, all they've done is taken the 338 Norma, left the body exactly alone, ran the taper down to 30, which pushes the neck out a little ways. So these 338 Norma cases are perfect for what I'm proposing to do, which is to use to make cases that will have an abutting shoulder right here. Now, I'm going to bring one of these up. These are a little ugly because I told you warts, feathers, and all. And I promised that from the start on this stuff. But this is about where we're setting the necks. I don't know, really, if this is coming clear or not. Man, get up here a little bit. This light seems a little funky. But let's just, I'm going to roll these around a little and see if you can see the step in the necks. Essentially, the necks are going to be about this long. They're going to probably be a tiny bit longer than that, but this is my initial. Right now, I'm making up some dummies to spec the reamer from. I have to know things like, see if I can get this light better, I just don't know. And these are all done slightly differently. I use different lubes, I use different bushings. That's what I'm going to go into in a minute here because, but you can see it. Let's just hope you can see these. If you can't, I'll proof the video later and I'll find out. But I'm going to presume that we got a shot so we can see what we're doing. So we took 338 brick cases and we started whacking dies, cobbling dies together to come up with something. Try some more light here. This might just get stupid. Yeah, that's okay. Sorry, guys. But as I said, I don't edit. It's all kind of trial and error. I try to talk while I'm jimmy-jacking around so that you're not completely losing time. You still got to listen to me. Here's some cases that I wrecked. I'm going to run this a little closer so that it focuses on my messes. I said warts, feathers, and all. This is the kind of warts and feathers that you can get when you're trying to do this. Because what I've done, I find this to be quite innovative. I don't have dyes because I don't know what I want for a dye yet, because I have to come up with a spec that works on this case before I even get a dye. The other people that have done this either took a factory dye and modified it. Well, reamer, I'm sorry. I don't have a reamer. I don't have any specs. So some of them have taken a guess at it, and so far I'm not completely happy with the guesses that I've seen, so I'm doing it my way. Which is, we've mocked up a gun. That'll sit aside for a while now. And now I'm making up some cases, and I'm setting a neck, and I'm bumping it, and I'm setting a shoulder here. I do this so that I can come up with a definitive measurement on the diameter of the neck. I've seeded a bunch of these. I've taken a bunch of these cases, and whether you get this or not, now I can measure these necks physically. So number one, I have a physical neck diameter dimension to start with for designing my reamer. Number two, I can take from the prior work, and I can take from factory, and I can decide where I want the neck to be. At this point, these necks are within a few thousandths of where I want them to end up, to blow out to the 35-degree shoulder and all of the things. But the first thing I needed to do, now, as you've done, this for instance is my 50 fart die, in which I took some weird some pistol die that accepts this case that I made up, which is a blown out, this is going to come up later. And then, this is another reason I wanted to do this. These two items by Lee are freaking awesome. This came out first, and this is their Lee, I should probably know what I'm talking about before I say it, but if you recognize this, this is a quick change assembly for the Lee presses. They pop in and out. You can even use them with their pop in and out. I got several of these presses. No, I guess you can't. Oh, forget what I just said. Again, I'm speaking out my ass without doing my research. So, these work for some of the other presses. Then they improved on it, and they came up with this slightly longer version with a locking bolt on it, my people. It's slotted. What that allows you to do is take old dies, just find a size that you can use for the body. In this case, I'm using it for, on the 50 part, this is a seating die, and weirdly enough, this is the actual seating stem from another sizing die. I show this just to show how this stack of parts can look, and this is a perfect, very nicely done, especially with this locking thing. Earlier I did a whole expose on the way these locking collars work, and how all the ones that have got a screw in the side are automatically cocked 7 to 12 thousandths. Well, these goes down really straight. When you tighten this up, it tightens down into the threads, and you end up with a reverse section on this side, which is quite useful. I've got this one tightened down. This is tightened down onto a die body that happens to accept this case that I'm working on. And boy, what happened is I must have screwed this in. This is actually the top half of a Redding bushing die. Now this is where it gets interesting. This Redding bushing die, I'm not going to talk about, but I found one that had the size that I want for doing the initial. I run them through the die with no bushings in at first. This is the top of one brand of die. This is the bottom of another brand of die. This happens to be a pistol die, 50 AE or something. I don't even remember. But it accepts this, and it accepts it quite tightly. But I didn't go out and buy a 300 Norma die. Getting one right now, it takes 6 months in the open market. No store in town has them. So I found a cheap old $30 die, cut it off, took this other end, which just happens to be, these particular dies are threaded, and these pieces right here are threaded so that they take either a decapping and expander ball assembly, or you drop a bushing in and use the bushing This is the upper half of a bushing die. So the size of this actual 30 caliber bushing die just happens to be such that it rolls and gives me a 90% sizing with the bare die. Now here's where it gets weird, and this is why I wanted to share my way. This particular bushing is a 289, 0.289. This other bushing is a 336. When I take this case and I run it into my homemade cobbled together die here, which is the upper part of a bushing 30 cal die, of which we won't even say what it is. This is a 30 cal bushing die. And I do the initial bump with this and it irons it down, but it won't hold a bullet. This is still loose, but it's centered up a little better. It's a two-step process this way. So I run it up into the die. It won't hold a bullet. Then I find the appropriate size, which in this case is this bushing right here, which is a, gotta remember which way to put the numbers on this thing. The numbers always go down toward the bullet. This is a 336, which through trial and error, because I got boxes and boxes of these bushings, I found sized it that next little bit so that it holds a bullet with about 3/1000 of nice pressure. Then, because I'm so cool like that, I took this 289 bushing and I dropped it in on top. That lettering is correct. So now I've got this homemade apparatus that's got a neck sizing bushing down here where I'm going to size this chunk of neck, and above that it's got a smaller bushing that comes down to almost to the ogive of this bullet. This is pretty slick because this homemade die now, I throw it in the press and I go ka-chunk, and I squish that neck down. Then I drop in a bushing and I drop in a second bushing on top of that. The second bushing being small enough that it hits the ogive here. And now I've turned this into a final neck squinching die and a bullet seating die. It all works at the same time. When I'm sizing this right here, it's short enough that it doesn't even go up into the next bushing. The bullet's sitting up in this bushing and it seats it, and the whole thing works to where in one pass I iron this and smooth it, and I seat a bullet, and now I have a case ready to go out and fire for 'em. So, bullet seating with a bushing. Something you maybe hadn't thought of. Just another little thing, the way Al does it. Hopefully you find it interesting.